Sometimes people refer to mermaids as being half fish, half woman. Yeah. I get a little bit, I understand, because I mean, kind of they are, right? But I get a little bit upset, because mermaid's a mermaid, you know.
That's why they have a name.
Right, they have a name. They're whole in themselves. Right. There's this old myth that many of you may know about mermaids being sirens who sit on the rocks and comb their hair. And that the sailors at sea, who of course in all the old myths are men, are drawn away, mesmerised by the mermaids with their siren song and their beauty, and therefore crash into the rocks and die because they are so distracted. Truth is, they weren't looking where they were going. But anyway, this all gets blamed on the poor mermaids. But actually, I like to think of it differently. I like to think that the mermaid is singing to herself because singing gives her pleasure, incredible pleasure. And that she doesn't care. She's not trying to attract a mate. She's not trying to attract anyone. She's enjoying her sexuality. She's enjoying her sensuality, and she's getting in touch with that. And that makes you really attractive. When when you're in touch with your own sexuality, you're feeling your most erotic, that makes us really attractive. And I like to think of that myth as showing that we're all responsible for our own course. But when we look to ourselves in love, what we give out to the world is love and attraction.
Yes.
And you can force attraction, but ultimately you're not going to find the community that you need, that you want and need, unless you are yourself entirely. And I think that includes our erotic selves.
Yes.
So I like to get that little myth out the way. Sailors who have no control.
When I was 5 years old, I think, I was at my grandparents' house, and my grandmother had asked me, she said, "Angela, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, 5 years old, sort of zipping around the living room, having a great time, and I said to my grandmother, who was sort of showing off, I think, for her friends or uncles and cousins and what have you, showing off the granddaughter. And I looked at my grandmother and I said, "I want to be a boy because boys can kiss girls." And so that happened sort of very early. And having my grandmother, who I love very much and I know loved me very much, react in sort of a very shocked and embarrassed way, I think. And having always been clairsentient enough, I could feel that in her, even though her response was, "Oh, don't be silly, that's not what you want." And this sort of very kind voice, but I could feel that is something I probably shouldn't be saying a lot of. So, and I think even from that age, I knew there were just some things I just had to put away that maybe would embarrass me or embarrass my loved ones or a specific loved one. And so it got harder to I guess, explore that part of who I am.
Yeah.
But I think, like, looking back now, it's one of my favorite stories. It's like it is my coming out story in some ways. Yeah. And it's a nice memory to have, but it took, I don't know, 13, 15 years for it to actually be a story that I could tell and not actually feel. I don't know if it's my shame as much as I was feeling my grandmother's shame. So it was. I felt both. I felt it both for us.
You were so spontaneous with your truth, and that's who you were. And even at that young age, you knew, at least a part of you knew who you were.
Yeah.
Which is pretty profound. One of the things that I feel we come across again and again is this idea that in our lives, in order to be spiritually complete, we need to be authentic, like entirely authentic, like you were in that moment when you said, "I want to be a boy," that because then I can kiss girls. That was so authentic and so complete and such sort of soul wisdom. And I learned when I was a child, I was taught that, because the people who taught me came from pain, I was taught that sexuality was about pain. It wasn't intended as suffering, but that's what I learned was that women were, women were meant to suffer. Men had pleasure, and you had to give men pleasure, I was taught, but women had to sacrifice. And I didn't even know what an orgasm was until I was in my very late teens. I didn't even think that women had pleasure from sex. I thought it was just something you did to service men who needed it. And of course, any idea of any other kind of attraction that wasn't male-female was just something I'd never
Neatly
had.
tucked away.
Neatly tucked away. As was, of course, the notion of making love to yourself, the notion of masturbation, which I masturbated from a young age, and I really didn't understand what it was before I even knew what an orgasm was. I'd had an orgasm. It was very confusing, and there I felt very ashamed. Yeah, thank you, Angela. Great. Divine sensuality, and as you can see, this is, of course, it's a mermaid image. You can see the fin there. And this mermaid from this spiritual oracle deck has beneath divine sensuality, it says, making love erotica. And when I saw that card the first time, I felt like I'd come right home. It's such a beautiful card. I don't think we talk enough in our society about the fact that when we climax, when we orgasm, when we read erotica, when we have fantasies, we are being authentic. That's us at our most authentic, and that's us, I believe in the soul, and I believe that that's us vibrating at a soul level, because it's us connecting with others, connecting with ourselves, connecting with the divine, because I know neither of us believe that there's anything sinful in any kind of consensual sexuality. And I think so many of us have these times, these moments when we feel our difference, and at the time that can feel, and then later we look back and say, actually, that was a part of my becoming.
Yeah.
And, and they can become quite special moments, I think.